I just felt like you disappeared.
Yeah, just finishing off my cup of tea. Okay. So hey Sid, hey Krishni. Just wanted to kind of talk about something, and I don't know if you noticed it, but there's a very interesting story that unraveled or happened in the last 3 months. In November, the patron saint of all weed, which is Snoop Dogg, actually came on the internet and he said that he's quitting smoke. And couple of days later, it actually transpired that after the world had gone crazy and had got millions of likes. If I remember the number, it was about 4.8 million likes on Insta. He actually came and said, "Hey, fundamentally, I am not quitting smoking, but I am adopting something which is quitting smoke from our lives because I am actually adopting a smokeless
Solo
stove,
stove.
right?" Uh, and honestly, for whatever it was worth, it was considered a coup. And if I'm not wrong, then Ad Age actually voted it amongst the top 40 ads or campaigns of 2023. So far, so good. Interestingly, in January of 2024, the company that ran this campaign has fired its CEO. Right?
What
And that got
in the
me
world?
thinking. Yeah, and that got me thinking on two questions. Yeah, and those are fundamentally the questions that I really wanted to kind of pick your brains on. The first one is the relevance of an internet celebrity or an influencer, right? And I come from a world where all the brands that I have worked on never had a celebrity, right? um, but if we've seen in the recent past, what we've seen is there's just so much that an influencer can bring to the brand. uh, for example, Alia Bhatt's beauty routine is something that a lot of women swear by, right?
Yeah,
so
skincare.
so maybe, and I'll come to the second question maybe a little later, but let me just start by asking this question, and I'll ask Krishni first. In a world where in the past there was a lot of questions around should we or should we not have a celebrity, and the question was, well, it's your choice. Influencers today suddenly have become a part of everyone's plan to say, if you don't have an influencer, you're not making a campaign, right?
Yeah.
And then you have stories like what happened in the case of Snoop Dogg, where he was the only one who made money, everyone else actually lost out. So the
Yeah.
question really is, how does one evaluate whether or not you actually need an influencer on your brand?
Yeah.
Krishna,
Yeah.
your
Very
thoughts?
good question. So honestly, Swapnil, I don't know if I have a straight answer to it. It's a really good question, but I think first things first, I guess you have to go see your business if you're really in this space that needs influencing. Um, I'm sure when these guys thought of the Snoop Dogg activation, it was more like, okay, we are sort of doing a category creation job. It might need advocates coming in. And if I really think on paper, like logically, right, it might make sense because anything that's difficult or has some amount of resistance to change coming attached to it, it needs some form of change makers coming to it. Like I can think of Amitabh Bachchan being used for polio, like back in the day, right? Which got people out of their homes, or even like at some point in rural India, seeing our prime minister's picture encouraging people to go and take the vaccine for COVID because that just brought a sign of authority attached to it. So maybe when you're doing some sort of category creation, topic is like taboo to raise. And first example that comes to mind is like Ranveer Singh and Bold Care, which is just very recently come in. That like absolutely fits the bill because sexual wellness, again, very tough topic to speak about in a country like India, or ironically, like because we are producing like billions, but still like a taboo or hush hush topic somewhere there. So I feel whenever maybe there is a need of category creation or raising awareness about something that will have some form of resistance to change, it definitely makes sense to bring in an influencer. But I feel there is a different angle of online celebrities or influencers that is about reach today. That people are using them from an angle of, like, even for us, right? When we do Diwali sales and all, we're reaching out to all influencers to talk about Amazon Great Indian Festival sale. Now, like, I'm probably gonna get bashed for this, but end of the day, like, we know no celebrity talking about a sale makes sense because they are, if anything, not shopping on the sale days, like with the kind of money and wealth they generated. But I feel like it's a channel to make information accessible to other people. Like influencers have sort of
Hmm.
become that
Hmm.
micro ho, bada, like whatever it is. So two reasons. One is if you want to raise awareness or do category creation work, it makes a lot of strategic sense. But just from everyday businesses, just like it's a channel of reach because everybody's sitting on social media and they're
So,
following these guys.
so I hear two things from you. One
Yeah.
is that an influencer can bring in a level of trustworthiness and
Mhm.
credibility that can drive, let's say, positive awareness about something.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I hear is that influencer can short circuit the effort that would be required to get the kind of reach. So they are
Yeah.
reach builders than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sid, coming to you, honestly, while I would obviously want you to comment on these 2 points from your angle, yeah, maybe it'll also help if we just step back and say, where does this fundamental need for an influencer arise? See, because I'm saying if I were to just take what she said, then a category like beauty care, yeah, or personal
Mhm.
care does not require any kind of awareness building. Yeah, but if
Mm.
you don't have an influencer, then you're not playing the game, right? And
Absolutely.
on the other hand, I would also put a very controversial one, which is what Poonam Pandey did around cervical cancer,
Oh God.
right? And you just saw the body language change with Krishni, and
Mm.
she's brought about something in a very very shocking way. Now we're not here to judge on good, bad, ugly, but I'm saying that's also an influencer at work, yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
honestly, if I had no, okay, I'm not relevant, but I'm saying if any other lady, for example, would have put across saying, hey, I lost something because of cervical cancer, um, would it have kind of caused that kind of um, what should I say, discussion, right?
Frenzy
So
also. Yeah.
yeah, so those three questions, somewhere it starts from what is it that the influencer is bringing to the table, which should be the guideline for a brand to even question saying, do I need an influencer or do I not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with Krishni about category building and reach. So I'm not going to repeat those things again. What I wanted to communicate about was it's probably a question of who and which. So if I look at the product life cycle and if I look at the law of diffusion of innovation, then I would say that we need different types of influencers at different stages of the product life cycle. So if I look at innovators, you need a different type of maybe a micro influencer or something like that who's going to talk the geek language. If you look at early adopters, then you're going to look at macro influencers or people who are very niche in their area. Maybe when you get to the risk averse early majority, then you're going to look at celebrities and so on and so forth. And the reason why you're looking at connecting it to the law of diffusion of innovation and maybe the product life cycle is because it makes a difference as to who is saying it. The messenger becomes the message. And so you're not buying the beauty care product, you're buying the influencer's skin. And which is
Yeah.
exactly why you're going for the influencer at that point in time. So who rather than whether or not, I think is a question. The second
Mm-hmm.
is I think that using an influencer, using a celebrity, not using whatever, I think perhaps we are veering towards using more influencers than celebrities and using more influencers than not using them. And the reason is not just because of the reach and category stuff that Krishni was speaking about, but it's also about converting a campaign into a conversation. And whether it's
Very nice.
Poonam Pandey or whether it is, the Snoop Dogg thing or whatever, I think all of this is creating conversations. Now, my view on your original thing about Snoop Dogg and the reason, my perspective on why it didn't work was it probably was because it brought an award to the agency. And normally look at awards to agencies as a death knell for the impact that it has on a campaign, because it was drawing attention to itself and it built Snoop Dogg's personal brand rather than actually connecting to sales and figures. So those are my initial thoughts on the
Yeah.
subject at hand.
No, sure. So on the Snoop Dogg piece, interestingly, when I did a little bit of digging on the same, Snoop Dogg's post got 4.8 million likes, as I said. Uh, the post which kind of said that this is about that smokeless pit, and this is before the agency got the award, was in thousands, right? So
What?
honestly, which is why I said the only person who benefited from this was Snoop Dogg.
Mm,
But Sid, coming back to the point that you were saying, and I'm saying there is a little bit of I would write to kind of challenge that, and I'm reminded of something very beautiful that I read on LinkedIn, with Fernando Machado put across, and he's definitely one of the leading thoughts on how to market well. One of the things that he said was that there are so many discussions today where it's not the idea, it's the celebrity that gets discussed first, and he put that across just before Super Bowl, and that was a big topic of discussion over the last
yeah,
few days.
yeah,
And he put across this thing that your discussion can't start with who will be the celebrity, which
yeah,
is something that possibly I picked up from what you also said. And while I agree with that piece of saying basis the life cycle, there is a need to shift from who the celebrity would be. Yeah, and there is an added element of, you can actually look at expanding the base by looking at adjacencies. So why should a beauty brand only look at beautiful people? They can actually look at
exactly. Yeah.
someone in a different place, etc., etc. But I'm still coming back to the same point of saying, why should an influencer be the first point of discussion on the
Hmm.
agenda than saying, hey, what's the agenda, what's the idea? Because I continue to kind of feel that influencer, the need thereof comes from whether the idea in the first place merits an
Of
influencer
course.
or not. Yeah. And here let me also put across that here the need for an influencer is someone who carries the brand on their shoulders, so the brand is benefiting from the influencer. Yeah. And not really, and I'm not really looking at a situation where you say, even though that's also possible to say, like you said, someone who needs to only short circuit reach, so very tactical deployment of a celebrity for a small piece.
Hmm.
That's a smaller part, but there also it's the same question:
So can
Hmm.
I go?
why before who?
Yeah, but
Sorry, yes, back to you.
So I think, Swapnil, what you may be overlooking is the power of metadata. So when I look at what I mean by metadata, it means the fact that the influencer is coming and talking to you in a way that is impacting both your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And while the
Mm-hmm.
conscious mind is having a discussion on LinkedIn or wherever it is, which is talking about, who will the celebrity be? Will it be Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl or something like that? What is happening at the subconscious mind is a lot of associations with the brand and the potential influencer. Now, if I have to just draw out this and talk about why do we care, for example, when film stars films make a lot of money, like, okay, 100 crores and 700 crores and all of that, is because we
hmm.
are essentially belonging to that tribe at a subconscious level. So
Hmm.
if you're not getting a single rupee, from the 700 crores that, let's say,
Yeah,
Amir
yeah.
or Shahrukh has made, but the fact is you're belonging to that tribe, and that is happening at a subconscious level. Now, at a conscious level, we are talking about money and this and that. At a subconscious level, we are actually saying, hey, I belong to there, and that's why I'm like that. And that perhaps is a juxtaposition that the person you mentioned on LinkedIn may not be perhaps getting. I may be out of my thing over here, but the fact is that when marketers discuss influencers and celebrities, they're only talking in a very rational way, and I think
Hmm.
that is in the point.
Okay, so that brings out a very interesting perspective, which is the influencer brings in a lot of emotional resonance,
Hmm. Well
which
put.
builds let's say the kind of credibility that the brand might be wanting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So so maybe I'll come back to Krishni now and pose another question. Yeah, which is, and I'm picking up a thread from what Sid was saying, marrying these two things to say, hey, who at which point in time, and therefore continuing to build this emotional resonance from someone who's, let's say, practicing it on a regular basis. Yeah, what are the filters that you do? So I'm saying, how
Hmm.
do you brief your agency to say this is the influencer, or this is the consideration set? You can't really say, hey, okay, um, give me a list of 1,000 and I'll do inky pinky ponky and
No, of
and
course not.
therefore
Yeah.
shows. So
Hmm.
for a person who practices this, what are the filters that you use to say, hey, this is the right influencer on the brand?
Right. So, see, at least where I am, there are some guidelines or tenets, I would say, which are very, very clear. Example, you'll never see a big celebrity coming in an Amazon ad. Like, we'll never have somebody who's endorsing Amazon because the company very strongly feels that we wouldn't exact, and it absorbs the points it kind of mentioned, which is the emotional attachment somebody brings. Because in a world where cancel culture is so strong, Amazon as a
Hmm.
company doesn't want to get associated with somebody who's open to cancel culture, because anybody and everybody could get cancelled. Like Shah Rukh Khan, I think, got awarded Indian of the Year a couple of months back. But 3 years ago, people were booing him around also. So they've taken that call as a company very consciously that this is something we're not going to do. But when it comes to parameters, I guess it not just life cycle backward, but it changes by objective. Like within Amazon, we'll have very different categories. Like we have a books category where we go after authors and summits and actual book reading clubs where people would want to read this. So once one thing definitely stand out is relevance to the industry, which is I guess bare bones thing जो हर कोई करेगा. जैसे since skincare है, so it has to be at some level a celebrity potentially with good skin, or appreciators of the skin at least, that or appreciator of the fact that this person looks naturally beautiful. So skincare becomes a thing versus somebody who's more of a proponent of acquired beauty. Example, you'll not see Amazon go, let's say, after the Kardashians for skincare, but we might approach them for a makeup
Hmm.
collaboration because that's what they stand for. So again, the point, maybe it's repetitive, but what the influencer stands for and what your category is about. The second thing is, what is your objective at the end of the day? Since we do a lot of sales, like the Great Indian Festival, or you'll see Flipkart doing a lot of big billion day sales, it's a lot about, okay, in the short term, like is the objective we are going after something that's very short term or something
Hmm.
that's sort of long termish.
Yeah.
Like today, I think for the first time ever for Amazon Fresh, we now have Manoj Bajpayee, who's sort of been roped in to partner with us. Probably the first time we've gotten, like, I would say, a celebrity per se to endorse us, and is in some sense becoming the face of things because he sort of represents the average Indian man, right? Like the family man association comes to people's
Hmm.
mind. So,
Yeah.
so again, the brand values sort of tie up with it if we are doing a long-term association. But if it comes to a short-term association, which is tactical in nature, that okay, we're doing a Great Indian Festival sale where iPhones and everything is going to be on awesome deals, and the clear message you want to land with people is
Mm.
deals are crazy and kick ass at Amazon. Then the objective is, okay, we're going to find some micro influencers who have good reach, and their job is literally educating others that this is happening in their respective
So,
fields, of course. So tech
so I
influencers
think,
doing that, but it'll
yeah.
be
So I
smaller
think
ones,
somewhere,
not celebs.
so somewhere
Yeah.
where somewhere where I see a lot of resonance between what you said and what Sid was saying in the earlier was the fact that context determines who will come in,
Yeah.
and context will determine what's the job that they have to do. And there is
Exactly.
absolutely nothing wrong in saying I'll take a celebrity only to short circuit the reach build up, right? The number
Yeah.
of people that a big celebrity can build for a category that is known, and just message building, right, can be done very quickly, which
I do have
therefore
a
then,
question though.
yeah.
Sorry, I do have a question with these two things in mind. Like, um, do you think the agency that actually hired Snoop Dogg for this smokeless stove was actually going after the messaging part of things, or was it just like, अरे धड़ाक से reach मिलने वाली है because CEO भी जाएगा जनवरी में, so we'll get some negative flack, but let's get eyeballs
No,
before
so
that.
so
Just
we'll
curious.
we'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that, because that was the second piece that I wanted to anyway discuss. But to kind of complete this and to kind of wrap it up, there's one question that I wanted to ask the both of you, and whoever wants to kind of take it up first is welcome. So we've understood that there is a thread that connects the need for a celebrity, the role that a celebrity has to play at any given point in time, and the definition of who that celebrity would be because of the context in terms of, as you said,
Hmm.
product stage, as you said, message to be delivered, yeah, and therefore the job to do those. That's very clear, and I'm saying if someone was to follow this template, then I think it'll be easier for them to determine who the celebrity would be with all of those, so to speak, stay away from kind of conditions that Krishni also mentioned. So the point is that if everyone does this, then in a world that is zigging, how do you zag, right? So ways by which you could zag, ways by which you could say, hey, I'll bring in, and these are the rules that no one thinks of, because again it will become a game about how are you becoming distinctive and differentiated. If everyone's using the same fundamental template and getting the same set of people, then we are again in the same quandary of saying, so therefore what? And I'm saying I'm questioning this because there was a phase not too very long ago when people had started writing obituaries of how influencer culture is dying because their credibility is under question, because they'll sell every brand and,
Anything.
yeah, and anything. And I think that's the point when brands kind of step back and said, hey, everyone does not need to go to the same celebrity, and we'll start looking at different people, right? And somewhere that kind of has settled down again. Not to say that those that would not come in, but that's where the question is coming from. So when everyone starts zigging, then how do you zag?
Can I go first?
Yes,
Please go
please.
ahead, Sid.
Okay. I think that the metrics of zigging and zagging themselves are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I feel is that in a world of information symmetry, and in a world wherein you are kind of disbelieving all the showmanship that comes through with advertising, perhaps we need to have different metrics of distinct between even distinctiveness and differentiation. So, I'm just holding them for a while. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that if I look at the fundamental mistake that, say, Snoop Dogg's campaign did, it was it tried to zag. So it was,
Yeah.
and that is the fundamental mistake, is trying to zag. And now, if I compare and contrast this to mundane sort of things, that somebody like Andrew Huberman who says, "Oh, this is sponsored by it," just, or Tim Ferriss or whoever it is, and the reason why I'm using these examples is because they're at the other end of the spectrum. They're just saying, okay, this is sponsored by XYZ and what, blah blah blah. It comes across as believable, it comes across as authentic, not very creative, but probably more effective in the long run, and nobody gets fired and no awards get won too. So that is my perspective
I
on this. Yeah.
Hmm.
actually have
Very
something
interesting.
similar to what Sid was saying. Uh, so, okay, you both are profs and like you both have worked also. Yeah, if marketing was getting done step by step, the way in the continuum we have built,
Hmm.
कि ऐसे sequentially होना चाहिए in all companies, then all companies would be Fortune 500s. Clearly, that's not happening, and clearly somewhere along the line that what's the agenda first or context matters doesn't somehow come to practice. That's why
Mm.
through the year we discuss, okay, campaigns that backfired, because somewhere I very strongly feel like there is that urge and desire to कुछ ऐसा camping करते हैं कि let's just stand out. So I was
Yeah.
interning in this company, and I'm not going to name them. You can go and check my LinkedIn and see like which companies. But I was interning in a company where the brand manager was just hell bent on, या कृष्णी कुछ कैंपिंग करते हैं, दुनिया हिला देते हैं. दुनिया तो हिला देंगे, क्यों हिलानी है, किसके लिए हिलानी है? And
Exactly.
as an intern who was getting paid like 5 grand a month, I had no desire, or I guess it was above my pay grade, but I said, बॉस आपको अपने पैसे फूकने ही है तो किसी और चीज पे जाके फूक लीजिए. मैं आपको माल वाले का नंबर दे दूंगी, and that will probably be better because the target audience you're trying to reach is students. You don't need to be doing a TV campaign. मैं आपको डीयू में बताती हूँ, नुक्कड़ नाटक सोसाइटी का नंबर देती हूँ, वो जाके आपको मैसेज डिलीवर कर देंगे, पैसे भी बच जाएंगे, and some students will get free ice creams out of it also. So that being said, I feel like there is a innate desire to stand out once, and I feel that's the glamorization of this marketing world. जैसे कोई
Mm.
marketer बनता है ना, everybody is saying यार buzz create वाली कुछ होना चाहिए. So while I agree campaigns should have objectives designed to create conversations, but not every campaign's job is creating conversations.
I
And that's
agree.
why,
No, so no, with no intention to kind of stop you, but I think I get the first thing that I must say is people. She's forgotten the number of that Malwala. So please don't send us
we'll
direct
edit it
messages. We
out,
will
yeah.
not be able to share that number because she refused to share it with me, and I don't smoke. Yeah, but I think no. So just a small thing. My intention of zagging was not to say, and Krishni, what you've said is exactly what I am vehemently against. Right? You can never make a campaign by saying, "यार कुछ earth shattering करते हैं."
Yeah.
Earth shattering,
Exactly.
earth shattering happens. It is what ensues. You don't pursue it. That's my
Yes.
favorite
Exactly.
thing. That is one thing that
Absolutely.
I can say uh, every day and twice on Sundays. It's that something that I that was not the intent. The intent of Zag was even with the purpose, and I'm saying we'll start with the context. We'll start with what needs to be done. But if everyone was to follow the same template, yeah, then you again have something which becomes almost the same. So zagging was with the fundamentals in the right place. What are the other ways by which you can unlock the power of, let's say, an influencer? So I possibly I didn't get my question across right, and the intent
Hmm.
was never to say like you said, and that's because what you just said, Krishni, is fundamentally what is wrong in a lot of these discussions, which is exactly what Fernando Machado's point was. You can't start by saying, "Yeah, get me a celebrity." Before that, the
No.
question has to be why, right?
Yeah.
My favorite dialogue from Jab We Met is when Anshuman says, "क्यों जाऊं मैं गन्ने के खेत? नहीं जाना
Ganne
मुझे
ke
खेत,"
khed.
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it is
Hmm.
that question, "क्यों जाऊं मैं खेत?"
No,
Right? You first
absolutely.
have to answer that before you send me to that. So this zagging was to say what are the other ways in which, because there is that element of how do I delight the consumer or surprise the consumer, and it's the right consumer and it's the right stimulus. But if it's completely expected, then you again lose that point of emotional resonance, right? Which is where the zag question was coming from. But I think because I have another question, we'll move on from here. And the point that I wanted to move on to, which is why I said I started from question two questions, was the second point that happened, which is where the CEO got fired.
With influencer marketing being part of the line items of channel strategy that every company today seeks out, the question really holds, is it just another way to generate buzz, or is it something that actually adds value? I think while Swapnil and I fundamentally did disagree on some things, but there is some agreement that we can all do, which is the discussion did not end with episode one. So this episode, particularly on how influencers and what the influencers are, what the hell they are, goes down to part two. Watch out for the space here to know more.